Yeah.
I guess we'll start with how have you've obviously been living in Japan, so start the podcast like that, I guess. So,
Okay. Yeah. So where should I look at you?
Where
Look at the camera.
Oh, you can
Just talk to us normally, and the
us,
camera's just picking it all up, so
Yeah.
it's totally fine. Yeah.
So you can either look either way, and
Okay. Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been living in Japan for 7 years now,
Yep.
which has kind of gone by pretty quick. Moved there in 2017 for Super GT. And then, just been staying there ever since, basically trying different categories, moving up to different teams. So, been loving it, but it's flown by.
Yeah. Can you actually tell us a bit about the Japanese culture? Because for us, as you were saying upstairs, like there's a lot of difference between obviously Australia and Japan, and you've come here and you have to acclimatise back to Australia. So what's like the cultural differences and like with your language, you said you were intermediate. So can you just explain a bit about that?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty different because like I raced in the States before I went to Japan, and before that, obviously, always in Australia. So I was very like kind of used to the whole Western mindset when it comes to the team dynamics and all that type of thing. But in Japan, it's very much like kind of it's more segmented. I think like a little bit more hierarchy style. Like you have to listen to the team boss, and he's got a bit more power, a bit more say.
Yeah.
But I guess one nice thing in Japan is a lot of the private teams as well, they're actually quite well funded, usually by the team boss. So they have a little bit more say, but they're paying all the bills. So you go, yeah, it's all right.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a difference, I think. And then outside that, the language barrier has been a pretty big one as well, just because some teams have English speakers, but other teams have zero. So like my first season with Honda had zero. So I was like, oh man, like I'm kind of moving up, but I'm also adding an extra level of challenge into the whole process. So yeah, that's been pretty interesting just to adjust to all that. And I would say like I'm reasonably well adjusted now.
Yeah.
But it's still not like natural all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I've got to ask, we were talking to Bart, Dan's coach, Barton Mora, and he said he tried to go over there, and I know I've lived there as well. It can be quite, an insular community, and they can be protective of it, and sometimes it is hard also. Like, they're very friendly and everything as well. But how did you break into the scene when there was that language barrier? Because was there sort of a connections there, or how did it make? Because I know how challenging it can be to break through into the culture and have people, sort of receive you in that. How did you go about it and getting involved?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really know too much about it before I went there. And I think that was like a little bit of would have been nice if I had done a bit more research beforehand. The way like a lot of the drivers come through there is it's very much through their systems, Suzuka Racing School, Toyota Racing Academy, coming in with sort of my own CV from a few different places. They didn't necessarily like take into account, what's the road to Indy all about? Or as you say, very insular type of place. So, I think that was its own challenge as well, just kind of proving myself there. I had a CV I thought that would sort of carry me into there pretty comfortably, but I basically had to kind of grow it again and sort of prove it again when I got there.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a challenge, yeah.
So how's the, obviously, we've raced karts and gone to Formula 4 together. How does their racing system work? So you start at go-karts, obviously, or even sim racing these days. How does it go from there?
Well, yeah, I feel like correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a while, but in Australia, I remember sort of you go through karting, then you're kind of on your own through that sort of like entry into Formula cars, that mid-range sort of series, until you start creeping up towards supercars. You can have like Super 2 with some maybe team connection type of thing to like the main game. But in Japan, you've kind of got a system the whole way over there. And I think that's good or bad. Like if the system works for you, then that's great. If you're working well within the environment there and stuff, that's great. But I think that's the main difference, because you come out of basically karts and you've already got some kind of manufacturer connection, really. Yeah. Suzuka Racing School or the Toyota program. And then you're kind of like, if you're in one of those, you're kind of like helped and assisted along the way. You get into the right teams and you go to the next steps kind of a little bit more sort of assisted. Yeah. But I think here it's pretty freestyle, right? You get out of karting and then it's like, you want to race cars, off you go. Yeah. Find your way. So that's pretty, I say it different.
So are they like America, where they actually have like a money system, basically like a purse pushing them through the system ranks, like
Yeah,
in NASCAR IndyCar, or
a little bit.
You went to America, so you would have seen
Yeah.
both versions of, I guess, motor racing.
Right, yeah, like the Road to Indy system, right? Where if you can win the championship, you get the scholarship
Yeah.
year up. So that was what attracted me, because obviously, like, budget's a critical factor for people to get to the top. And it was always a challenge to be able to move to the next step. So that's the reason I went for the States. But yeah, it's more of a private version, I guess. It's like, it's not up for grabs just by winning the championship. If you're in one of the manufacturer systems, you have to prove it on the track and then like off the track with the data and heaps of different things. They kind of just have to approve it. There's not necessarily like a checklist. Oh, he's done this. Okay, he's in the next one. That's how it is in Road to Indy. But
yeah. Do they have a licensing system like they have with the Supercars license thing that's going on now?
no.
No. Have you spoken to Joey about that?
I haven't, no, but I've kind of seen a little bit of what's gone on, right? The requirement is a gold status of the FIA license, right? Something like that.
Yeah, so I think it's like, as you said, the FIA bronze, silver, apparently over there, apparently overseas, it doesn't translate to Australia, so they've got their own supercar, and that's what we're talking to about Craig in the episode before, where I was just wondering if Japan had something similar, because America kind of does with their purse, the Road to Indy thing, but Supercars has got their own thing within it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's way more looser, I think, because like you kind of, in the series I'm doing right now, you get like a category of like amateur, expert, or pro, basically. They've kind of split their version of silver and gold is expert and pro.
Yep.
And pro is only if you've become like a Super GT champion or you're racing in GT 500. Everyone else, like GT 300 drivers, some GT 500 drivers are all in the expert class.
Yep.
So it's super easy. You don't need to be a certain license to move up. I think that's fine in Japan, but if you try and race outside, like if I wanted to come back and do supercars, it's a bit of a black hole for that licensing system or the FIA one. So
how did Super GT come about? Because Bart was explaining to Brooke and I, like it started from kind of like World Time Attack in a way, and it grew from a small thing to a big thing, and then had to control it. And can you explain to like the Aussie audience and the Americans like how that category came about?
Yeah, well, to my knowledge, it's kind of had a few iterations along the way. The one before Super GT was Japan Touring Car Championship.
Yep.
And that was kind of like in the 90s. I think Super GT was from 1994. Might be wrong. But that's when they kind of standardize it a little bit. And before that, it was very much more open and a little bit more like tuning shops in their backyard or tuning shops in their garage would just turn up with crazy cars that they've put together and race it like that. And there's a lot of sort of historical pictures of like, the early GTRs and stuff with huge body kits and all that time attack style setup. And eventually, I think just as things go, as the technology goes up, the gaps get bigger, so they have to control it a bit more.
Yeah.
So now it's pretty much FIA GT3 plus DTM Class 1 put together.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then, so where did you start with Super GT? Was it with Honda first, or was it with another? Because you've gone through a few categories or few, teams and stuff.
Right, yeah. It started with Audi, actually.
Yep.
So back in 2014, I was racing the Asia Cup Championship, which is Formula BMW, basically.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my first full season outside of Australia to race like abroad. And doing that championship kind of opened my eyes a little bit to what's available in outside of Australia. I didn't know about Super GT or Super Formula. And so that came about because I met a contact during that season his name's Hideki Noda. He's actually an ex-F1 driver from Japan.
Yep.
And in Japan, one of the Toyota teams is called SARD. You might have seen them in GT 500. They've run for like a long time. But they do, at that time, they had a team in GT 300 as well, which is basically GT3. So Hideki moved from 500 into running the 300 team. And I'd just finished my year in the States then. So this was a little bit after I'd met him. And I said to him, hey, I'm really interested to come and check out Japan. I kind of want to focus on that pretty seriously. And he said, well, timing's good because I'm moving into this team now. So I know your credentials outside of Japan. It's a little bit hard to just come in off the street, but it's good timing. So come and take a seat in the 2017 car.
Yeah, right.
So that's how it started. And then, it just went from there. So it was with Audi basically, but private team with a little bit of Toyota connection.
Yeah. So let's go all the way back to when you actually started racing with go-karts. How
Yep.
was like your introduction to motorsport? Because obviously people now see you. How many followers you got on Instagram, by the way?
10 and a half.
10 and a half.
Yeah,
There you go.
it's a big
10.
audience.
Yeah, so you got a big audience. So for them listening here, so you go back 10,000 followers, for example. Like, where was your first starting point? Like in Australia, how did it all happen? Was it a hire kart? Was it a?
It was a bad start.
It was a bad start. Yeah.
So my uncle used to race go-karts, and when I watched him, I was like 3-4 years old at Oakley,
Yep.
the kart track. And
In
then
Victoria.
In Victoria, yeah.
Yeah,
Because I'm
right.
originally from Melbourne, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but moved up when I was like 5 or 6. So prior to that, 3 or 4, I was watching him race at Oakley.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that looks pretty fun. Like, I'd love to do it. I just want to start a race on pole position. That's my goal. And then every year I was like waiting, counting down the years, because you have to be 7, right, to start. So then when I turned 7, I was like to my dad, hey, I'm 7. I can meet the license requirement now. So can we go to the go-kart track? So he organized a test day at Wollongong kart circuit, driving the Coma, you know, the old cadet kart.
Yeah. Apparently that track's pretty dusty now. It's still going.
Is it?
Yeah, but it's not AK regulated.
Oh,
basically.
okay. Fallen off a bit, huh?
Yeah.
Right.
Just give me an update on the track.
Yeah,
That's
good
how
to
long
know.
it's been. Yeah.
It has been a minute. That was 2004, I think. Oh, no, 2002 maybe.
Yeah. So, yeah, back to Wollongong. Yeah.
Back to Wollongong, yeah. And then, I put the helmet on before I got in the cart, and I was already like, oh, I'm a bit out of my depth here. Like, started to set in, like, I'm going to drive a go-kart, and it's going to be fast, it's going to be loud. I was 7, so I got in the cart, drove out, and I was like, oh, man, I got to bring this thing back to the pits and get out. It's too scary.
Yeah.
So I, like, battled around the first lap, and I got out, and I was like, nah, I'm done. Not driving.
Really?
Yeah.
So you had that sense that you didn't want to drive back then, like it was just too overwhelming for you.
Too overwhelming. Like, I really wanted to do it, but I think I had no like connection to the reality of like how it feels to drive and what it's like having the helmet on, how loud it is, the speed as well. Like a cadet engine, it's like it's not that slow, you know. Like the rental carts, you go to like maybe 40 k's or something, but the cadet carts, like I don't know, 50, 60, depends on the circuit probably. And I'm like 7, driven nothing. I was like just shocked basically.
Yeah.
So I pulled in. I couldn't even get in the pit lane actually.
Yeah.
I drove up to the pit lane and you got like the tires to drive in.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, no, I don't know how to make it around this. So I just jumped out and went into the pits. I was like, I'm done. Like,
Did you do like a nervous vomit back then when you were like young? Did you actually get to that point?
No, I think I was like in a blissful state of like, oh, I'm going to drive a go-kart. Everything's good. And then I get in, I'm like, oh man, this is what it's like, huh? And then happened after, yeah.
Do you remember your first chassis? What was it? Do you actually have that?
Yeah, it was a Mike Wilson kart.
Mike Wilson. Wow.
Have you ever seen those?
Yeah. Well, they don't exist anymore.
They don't, right? Yeah, I think they barely existed back then.
Yeah.
I was like, I never saw another one. Yeah, I turned up to the track. I was like, oh, Mike Wilson, what do we got here? Like Arrow, Monaco. Where's the Mike Wilsons? Are they not a thing? And I never saw one. So
it's like some guy built them in his garage, put them out, and you think, oh, they're going to be everywhere. And then,
So
right. Wow.
That's how it started. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what happened after that? So you got obviously a bit more confident because you clearly stayed in car racing.
Well, yeah. So 7, walked away on day 1.
Yeah.
Gathered myself up. I still had as much desire to do it,
Yeah.
but I think like I finally got a bit of a insight, a bit of a reality check on what it's like. So joining that into my desire, I was like, does this match? Like, do I want to be like doing this, you know, as like as seriously as I think I want to be doing it?
Yeah.
And then when I was 8, I reconsidered it and I was like, oh, I'm going to go back. I just need to think when's the right time. And then when I turned 9, I was like, okay, I'm going to make a comeback now. Let's try again.
Yeah.
So then that's
So wait, you waited 2 years.
It took me 2 years to recover from that.
2 years to recover to get back in a go-kart.
To build up the confidence, I think, to be like, I think I can handle it now.
Yeah.
So then I went to Eastern Creek and met Troy Hunt. So that's where it started.
Yeah, right. And then you got coaching through Troy.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then was that kind of after school and then just took off and then started kart test days at the creek and then went from there?
I think I did the first day there and it was just like something that he organized privately as like a come and try type of thing. And I did like 5 laps and I wanted to keep going. And then they're like, you got to come in because your window was 10 minutes or something to try. And I did the whole 10 minutes, came in and I was like, I love it. So I'm ready to like take it seriously.
Yeah.
And then, then it was like every weekend or not every weekend, but you know, every North Shore Kart
Club Day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you went, and back then, I was actually one of Troy's not first customer. I think it was his third or fourth. So he had, he had Antunes, Alajarjan, myself, and then after that it took off. But he was, you were basically though, it was you invented that was kind of like the start of where his CIK team and Karting Australia team is now. So have you spoken to him recently about all that stuff or?
Oh no, I've been in touch with him now and then over the years. Yeah. But yeah, it's been, I guess, tricky in general to be in touch after not having lived here for like 8 years now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I message him now and then.
Yeah. Didn't he go over to Singapore with you or something at one stage?
No, he went over to Malaysia with me.
That's it.
Yeah, that was for the Formula BMW stuff.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So back then, back to Venter and yourself.
Back to those days, yeah. So then, I started karting with Troy, basically. And we just focused on doing, I think I had one season of cadets at the time because I was 9. I think the cutoff was 10. So did a season, North Shore Kart Club Championship, basically. And still my goal was I just want to start first for a race. And then, like back then on the like club days, you get like a random draw, right, for the 2 heats.
Yeah.
First race, they put me on pole position off the P plates, of course. The P plates. And I started to freak out. I was like, oh man, because back then, I don't know if you remember, the grids for like cadets was like 30 karts. It was huge.
Yeah, I was actually saying to someone yesterday when I was racing myself that, yeah, like back when we were racing karts, there was an A and a B class sometimes.
And even C.
Yeah. To actually get into the final. Yeah. It's insane how much it's changed though.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I think at my first race, because there was like a few races on P plates, I think that was even like a C class or something then. Yeah. And then B class, I was off the P plates, and then they put me on pole for the first race, just by chance.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh man, like not yet, like I'm just getting off the P plates. And I was pretty nervous. Started the race, and then down the main straight, get hit in the back.
Yeah.
There's a cart like on my head, like how you can ride the wheel.
Yeah.
Someone rode my wheel, and then I'm off on the first corner, basically.
Yeah.
And it's Venter on my head. I didn't know him yet.
Yeah.
And then his dad came over, lifted him off me, and then got going. But yeah, some sketchy starts to the first few races.
Yeah. Did you actually notice when your first time, like obviously going from like a novice, karter when you were a kid, to when like a driver coach came on board? Because we've had Tom Williamson on here, and did you actually notice that direction change in a way?
I think
when you got like even in cars, do you know what I mean? Like, do you notice when your driving style changes?
I think fortunately for me, it was racing with Troy from the start. I kind of had that driver coach aspect in there from day one. So I think my like early days, I was kind of adapting to his style. And I felt like by the end of my time in karting, I kind of drove his style, because like just the way we communicated about like the feeling, the setup, how to kind of, handle like oversteer or any slides and stuff like that. It's like we're speaking the same language. So I think I'd really like adopted and adapted to his training over the years. Yeah. And then you go and race different things, and then people have a little bit of a different style. And then after that was kind of my first time to experience like drivers with different styles, because I think I was taught this one way. That's all I knew. And it's still like my core, I guess, for my driving, but there's more styles out there, which I came across later.
I actually was going to say this a while ago, but so you grew up actually in Melbourne. So when did you actually leave Melbourne? Like how old were you then? 6 or 7?
I was 4 or 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right. 5, I think.
So you don't really remember much of Melbourne? Really?
Not really, yeah. Just small bits and pieces.
But you grew up in the Northern Beaches, didn't you?
Yep.
How was that?
Yeah, good. I mean, I feel like I'm a Sydney guy just because I don't remember Melbourne, so it feels like my hometown. And it was good. I just remember it's really far to get to the tracks all the time. It's like the closest one was Eastern Creek.
Yeah.
Butterfly Farm's like an hour and a half. Newcastle was, what was it, 2 hours?
2 hours, yeah.
Lithgow, 3 hours.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, these weekends are like, road trips basically.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, the Northern Beaches is like that weird, like you said, you've got to go always around everything to get out of here. It's like funny, it's quicker, I speak to other people, to go from the city to the Central Coast sometimes than it is to here, with the way that the highways go and everything, because we kind of loop inland that little bit more. Yeah. Where did you grow up on the Northern Beaches?
I grew up in Balgala Heights.
Yep.
So just
Nice
a little bit
area.
further down from here.
Yeah.
Yeah, just really like like small, local, quiet street type of area. Went to local public school there, so
Would have been so different to what it is now.
different to Tokyo. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I remember that was a shock for me when you go there and the amount of people and the buildings and everything.
Yeah.
It's like this. It's a massive culture shock. What was it like for you when you first landed?
Well, I'd actually been to Japan before just a couple of times.
Yep.
So I had an idea of what it was like. And
Yep.
it was always like an overwhelm when I went there. You just walked into like Shibuya. There's like lights, people, sounds everywhere. No space to walk properly. And I was like, damn, I love this. This is so cool. So
Yeah.
I knew what to expect before I got there.
Yeah.
So you got attached to, when did you go to Japan the first time?
I went just after high school. So I graduated 2013. Yeah, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And then 2014 January, I went there for the first time. So we had a few like international students come to our school who were Japanese.
Yeah.
So I was kind of friends with them, and they went back after high school. So another friend of mine and I were like, oh, let's go see him, like post-school trip type of thing.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I went to the Auto Salon. The first time I saw what Super GT was, what Super Formula was. And I thought I was going just to have like a almost like a schoolies basically,
Yeah.
And then
At
I
Auto
went
Salon.
there. Yeah, at Auto Salon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I went there. I was like, what is this world? Like there's heaps going on here in the racing scene. So it just opened my eyes and changed my goals completely after that.
Was Auto Salon in Australia when you went over? Or did we still have it back then?
That's what I was going to ask.
I don't think we had it then,
I
did
don't
we?
think so.
We
I'd never
lost it?
heard of it actually until
Oh,
then.
okay, so we mustn't have. Because for anyone who's, I guess, maybe late 30s, 40s like us is more, we had it growing up. It was here. I remember going as a teenager and maybe just before because I went to Japan when I was 20. And then it was when I was in Japan, they had it, this was 2008, and I was super excited to see theirs, but their level of what they do in production for their Auto Salon is next level compared to here. And as I mentioned earlier, they had I can't even remember what car it was, but they had a car, the whole livery was diamonds. Like that's their idea of a livery, was like for a big Auto Salon show when, go big or go home. And I was always just impressed with their level. But you're a part of it now, the Auto Salon that's over there, aren't you?
Yeah. So I've been a part of it a few different ways. And I think, was that Diamond Car a Mercedes?
I think so. Because if I went back, I'd have to find old hard drives we're talking about. I'd have to dust off. I have pictures that I took, because this was back just before we had like smartphones where you could take all the photos. So this was all taken on cameras where you had SD cards. And I remember having them in there. But yeah, I remember being there and taking photos of this thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was still there because I saw the Diamond Car in 2014.
Oh,
Two
wow.
Mercedes or something.
Yeah, you want to keep that around for a few years because that's a lot of work.
That's an expensive job, yeah.
Yeah, you gotta go on about Shogun Automotive. Obviously, is that your current company now, like, or is that a business?
Yeah, it's like my new project basically. And I'll circle it into your question about the Auto Salon. So I've been there for two reasons. One was for Shogun. The other reason was for Honda. So when I joined Honda in 2020, it was part of Modulo, which is a like parts maker. It's like a Honda owned, like Mugen basically.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, and so they had their booth there, and then got announced there, and was kind of just there helping out with them and being on display. Yep. So 2020, and then 2023, the start of this year, I opened up a shop at the start of last year, and we made some partners. One of them was G Technic, which is like a coding brand.
Yep.
And so they also have a booth in Auto Salon. So my team in 2023 wasn't in Auto Salon, but G Technic was.
Yep.
So we got like a small like plaque and part of their booth as well. So that's the product side of Auto Salon.
Yeah. Right. What made you get interested in doing that? Because have you got a business partner with you? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've seen that on videos. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it kind of started after Honda basically. So things were great there, but obviously COVID came through and then knocked Honda around a fair bit, cut their budget out. They lost some teams, they cut some drivers, and my team also disappeared.
Yeah.
So I went back to running private teams, and I just thought, like, I put 4 years into building up to that spot, and it kind of just got knocked away for no real reason other than just financial. And it's just a bit unstable, to base my whole like stability in Japan off of that. Now, obviously, I found a great team next year and the year after that, not in Super GT, but in Super Taikyu.
But Super Taikyu?
Super Taikyu, it's like an endurance GT series.
Oh, okay, yeah. So kind of like our Australian GT Championship. Is that what you're kind of like looking at Supercars the other week? Like, was that what you're trying to get a
that
gauge
was
of?
GT World Challenge. So that's still like sprint racing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Super Taikyu, it's actually endurance. So we have like a 24-hour race, an 8-hour race.
So like our 12-hour and 6-hour.
Like a series built around that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Maybe, like something like that.
Yeah, okay.
And I was just like, it's pretty stressful, like being over there for so many years and having ups and downs and stuff. And some of it's in your control, but some of it's not. So I thought, well, I have built all these connections up in Japan. Like I'd networked a fair bit through racing. I knew a few of the brands as well. Because one thing in Japan is a lot of the teams that are running there are actually like the parts makers, like Endless. They make brakes, or Modulo, which was my Honda team. So I was like, damn, I have quite a few like brands connections now. So I thought, why not just like build a shop around that, start to build up something on the side where I can just plug in my racing contacts and then create like an additional level of stability in what I'm doing out here. And then that's how it started, basically.
Art was basically telling us yesterday that like every team is like to a T, like perfect, like an F1 team, like the way that they set up their gear. Like you don't even know that someone has less money than the other. You know what I mean? Like even the rear guys, like, the guy in last place looks the exact same in the pits as, the guy leading the championship, or, you know what I mean? Like it's very, the way everything in Japan's done is very clean and efficient and, you know what I mean? Straight 180, perfect to a T. There's not a grain of dust anywhere on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, you do feel like none of it feels like it's done out of the back of the truck type of
that's
of
what I was getting at. Yeah.
And generally, because a lot of that's because the shops are involved, like the brands are involved. So they can't have an image of like, we've just thrown everything out of the truck, it's on the ground and we'll just put it on the car when we need it. It's a little bit of a presentation for them too on like how we operate. This is how, tidy and serious we take our racing. So our product's going to be like that too. So that's kind of why. But I would say there's still like a decent amount of variation because some teams are manufacturer, some teams are private. And then Super Taikyu, it's got like 60 cars in it. So you've got even teams which is just full AM set up with people who they're running in like some of the lower classes, like the Honda Jazz and stuff as well. So you've got like that level, and then you've also got like D Station, which is my team, which run in WEC and stuff. So there is a fair bit of a gap sometimes. But it's nice to see that your average team is pretty like tidy, pretty structured. Yeah.
I did my first night race last night, and you've obviously done a lot of GT, a lot of stuff since we've raced cars in Formula Ford.
Right.
So how did you get into that mindset of just, a certain, like when did you hop in, or how does that all work from an outsider's point of view to in the pits, you know what I mean? Like
how do I switch into the mindset?
Yeah, like the mindset, and you've got a driver coach, don't you, as well? Dave Diggle, who's
so funny thing about Dave is he's actually not a driver. Yeah, he's a performance psychologist. So his background is basically the science of performance, the science of focus, and he's got like a neuroscience background and a psychology background, and it's just tailored around like how to get the most out of yourself, how to be more consistent. I'm sure you have days, right? And even maybe it was like last night too, it's like feeling tired, or some days you just feel off. I remember like back in the day for me, some days I'd feel like I'm on it and I'd drive really well. And then the next day I'd turn up like, oh, I'm just not feeling as on it today. Just working out how to be on it all the time and that kind of thing.
I definitely felt like that the other two nights. I had Friday, which was my off day, and then Saturday, which was my good day. But yeah. So go on with Dave.
So I kind of had this habit actually back in go-karting, whereas basically I'd just end up binning it in the pre-final, and then I have to come from the back and then drive like my best race ever. Yeah. And I think it's because I'd mentally taken all the pressure off, and not that I was crashing on purpose in pre-finals. I think I was trying too hard basically, and then and I kind of just found out like how I can operate like that all the time. Like the way I drive the final, I want to drive practice and the heats and all that as well, the same way. So I was just learning how to do that, basically.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Brooke, you got anything?
I think...
It's a bit uncharted territory, I think, in the motorsports. Yeah.
Because Brooke's done jiu-jitsu and like long-distance swimming and stuff like that. That's why I said to you, Brooke, like...
Yeah, I know. I've had sports psychology as well with the swimming, like you said, the long-distance stuff and having to think through all of that. And I think, how long, so what's the longest race you've done? You mentioned there's 24 hours in Japan. What's the longest you've had to go?
It's been 24 hours.
You have
I've
done the
done a few
24
of
hours?
those. Yeah.
Yeah, and then how have you, in terms of your preparation, there's the mental side you've talked about. Do you do any other sort of training? Because I did see online in your profile that you're a black belt in Taekwondo.
Oh yeah, that was on there, right?
Yeah. I don't know. And you could, well, I think you've scored yourself low in karaoke. 3
How
out
do you
of
know?
10. I don't know. I don't know. I was like to Dan, I think he's been harsh on himself. I bet you he's like a 9 out of 10. He's lying to us all.
No. Trust me, you don't want to see it.
That was an impressive driver profile, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
I was actually entertained by your website.
It was
great.
great.
Yeah, it was great.
Oh, it was really well set up and everything. It was entertaining, like you said, to read. But do you use Taekwondo and that to train for it? Or is there other sports you're doing or gym? Or how do you prepare for the 12-hour?
Yeah, Taekwondo was something I did. Yeah, something I did back sort of in the karting days as just like another, like, I don't know. I think it's the same as racing. You kind of just have like a goal. I wanted to get to black belt, and then you just like keep improving yourself to try and get there. And I think I could bring some of that across, because one thing that I learned through the process of that was like the structure. You know, like there's like forms, right, for Taekwondo, and you have like a pattern. So you have to do like a pattern to graduate to the next level. And I think racing, it's a little bit less structured, but being able to bring some of that structure in just on like a debrief process. This is stuff I learned from Dave as well. It really fit together well.
Yeah.
Just enabled me to improve that consistency basically. And I think it's become like a strong point for me as a driver now, just consistency in general. But back in the day, it wasn't really a strong point for me. I was kind of like the guy that would turn up and be quick one day and then, you know, struggle to replicate it basically. So yeah, I think that's come across pretty nicely.
Have you also learnt anything from your teammates, like the Japanese teammates over there? Do they have anything that they would do differently, maybe you've seen in how they prepare, or how even on a long race weekend that we might not be doing here? Have you seen any things that, because I know different, they do, every culture has a different way of looking at things and doing it. But have you found anything that you're like, yeah, that's really helped me over there?
I would say it's kind of similar. I can't really think of something that stands out different on there. I think like Super GT is quite international. So it's kind of, that baseline is kind of there in America, probably here in GT World Challenge as well. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That's good to know.
Cool. Now, I found this interesting fact, which I spoke to you offline about out of the studio here. But did you win the WA State Championship in Formula V?
No.
Can you tell us those experiences?
This was like a free stat that I got on the database. So I actually emailed the guys because I saw it too. So it says, I think it's 2011.
Yeah, you won apparently you won in 2011 in the WA State Championships.
Apparently, yeah, opposite side of the country.
I literally wrote on here, I had no idea that you won that.
I didn't know either, yeah. So I think it was like 2015 or something. I saw the database and I was like, oh, wow, they have like, you know, driver's stats on here. So I checked it out and I was like, oh, WA 2011 Formula V champion. I was like, I didn't do that. So I don't know how it got like grouped in there.
Yeah. And it's a very random state as well.
Yeah. Literally the furthest away that I could have been.
There's some poor Jake Parsons in WA going,
just got his title robbed, basically. Yeah. So I actually emailed the database because they didn't count my Formula BMW championship.
Yeah,
so
right.
I was like, hey, my Formula BMW title wasn't counted. And actually this one was counted. So I thought, like, you know, not some guy saying, just give me a title type of thing. Like, I'm trading a fake one for a real one. Yeah. But I didn't get a reply. So I thought, oh, it just is what it is then. I'll keep it, you know?
Yeah. Before we get into your Formula Ford stuff, so we did CIK Stars of Karting together.
Yeah.
What did you think of that era of karting? Because now it's also now merged in with the Australian Karting Championships. Like it was like I guess they were trying to get karting back then mainstream in a way, like with Castrol Edge and, you know, I mean, you were racing Joey back then, which a lot of people don't know that, you know, now that you're in Japan, but you've actually raced like, you know, top tier drivers. Yeah,
well, Joey and I were teammates for the World Championships in 2012, which was kind of like my last season of karts. Yeah. And then I think the Stars of Karting I did in 2010 and 2011, maybe. And it was pretty cool. I mean, like going from regular, like, you know, club racing or state titles, you went there to an event that was like just for you guys. So it kind of felt like, it felt like you'd gone away on like a Supercars or an F1 weekend, basically, because as you said, Castrol's there. Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of media stuff, which is usually not there. Yeah. So the atmosphere was very different. And I think that was pretty cool to be part of that.
You actually got to tell me and the you know, the fans about like the under 18 World Championship. What country was that in?
It was a 3-round championship. Yep. So first round was in Portugal.
Yep.
And there was like 88 entries. And then the final can only house like 33 or 34 karts.
Mm.
So most drivers end up not making the final.
Mm.
And then I raced with Top Kart with Joey and one other guy
Yep.
who was an Italian that had raced with Top Kart in Italy. And so, first round Portugal, second round France, third round Dubai.
Mm.
And then Portugal, Joey and I both qualified for it. I lost a chain in the final.
Mm.
I can't remember where Joey placed, but we both made it through. But no like standout top 10 or anything like that. And then for France, I was pretty on it that weekend. I think I came top 10.
Mm.
And I remember chatting with Joey after because like we were basically next to each other through the race.
Yeah.
And I think he was only 1 or 2 karts behind and said, oh, we had exactly the same like situation unfold. We were quick at the start, then it went off at the end, then it kind of came back a bit.
Mm.
And he said, yeah, I was just watching, like it was exactly like that for me as well. So so that was that one. And then the final race was in Dubai.
Mm.
Joey actually won the race, which was pretty awesome.
Impressive, yeah.
And I ended up DNFing the pre-final.
Mm.
Yeah. And then I started from the back with Anthony Hubert. You remember the
Yeah,
F2
Antoine
driver?
Hubert. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, wow, you raced with him. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So we were off the back together and we were like, I think like we can work together to get to the front. So we were having a chat and then shaking each other's hands. It's a little bit of a funny story. Shaking each other's hands, let's work together and get to the front.
Mm.
Super nice guy. I had never spoken to him before that. We were a bit of, rivals from through the year.
Mm.
So we chatted together. It's like the last race. Let's kind of work together and just get these guys cleared and go back to the front. And so super friendly dude, very positive interaction, went into the race. And the first few corners in Dubai, it's like basically it's just flat. It's like a sweeping right, left, right. Mm. And when you're on your own lap, it's basically just flat. But in a group at the start, you've got like 2 lanes or maybe even 3 lanes of traffic.
Mm.
And it's chaos at the start, like starting from the rear in this race. And I'm getting hit from the back and Anthony's on my side. And then both of us dive to the inside for the hairpin. And I'm getting hit up the back basically way past the breaking point.
Yeah.
And I go into the back of him and then he goes flying off it through past the apex. I'm like, oh man, my teammate's gone,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and he probably thinks it was me. And then and then I came through from 34th to like 14th or something like that. So it was a nice recovery. Yeah. And the last few laps, I was just watching the scoreboard because I saw Joey and Leclerc battling for P1.
Yeah. Who was in that 18 under World Teams World Championship?
George Russell.
George Russell, yeah.
Charles Leclerc, Anthony Hubert.
Was Max around then? No.
Nah, he wasn't. I don't know what he was doing, but he wasn't there with that one. That's all I can remember.
Yeah, okay. Wow.
So what years was this?
2012.
2012, okay, yep. And how old were you back then?
17.
17, okay, yep.
Yeah, right. And you'll literally try. So after that, your goal was basically to go into Formula Cars, wasn't it?
Yeah, my goal would have been IndyCar basically the whole time.
Yeah.
That's why I was like heading towards the States. But
Okay.
kind of like on the way there, I saw Japan through just personal experience and then realized what's available. So then that's where I kind of adjusted my trajectory.
But,
sorry.
When you were a kid though, did you have like IndyCar posters on your wall and was
Yeah,
that
yeah.
your goal?
Did you ever see there was a game, IndyCar 2005 for
Yes.
Xbox?
Yeah.
I have like 1,000 hours, I swear, on that, just going in circles, on Indy 500.
Was there a reason you never wanted to go to Europe, like where Leclerc and everyone were headed for?
I think, to be honest, it could have been influenced by the game as well.
Okay.
Just the fact that it was like so tangible. I was like, I know what, I know who all the drivers are. I'm watching and following along. And then Troy's old friend was Ryan Briscoe.
Yeah.
Who was in IndyCar at the time. And I went over and met him one time and it just seemed like a reality of like, this is possibly an option to go down. And the scholarship thing looked like that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Do you still now to this day rate Indy over F1?
F1's just got a sort of cool factor about it where you can see like, Ferrari versus, Mercedes, Red Bull. You've got really top drivers in there. That's always cool. I think the fact that it's a bit sort of like segmented in the teams, IndyCar's better on that front because you don't know who's going to win on the weekend. So
we were watching that literally before you got here, like IndyCar.
Oh, yeah?
It's just it's so close and random. Like that's why I like personally. I'm like you. I always wanted to be a NASCAR driver when I was a kid.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
like you played the IndyCar 2005 game. I played the NASCAR Total Team Control game.
Yeah. Okay.
And I've always liked NASCAR since then, and then Ambrose influenced. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's cool.
So for like you and myself, I guess the Americanized type of racing series is what made you go. But you actually got the chance to, meet Ryan Briscoe and go over there. But back to your Formula Ford stuff. So you were teammates with Caitlin Wood, who did Formula W Series. Who else were your teammates around with?
Oh yeah, I haven't thought this far back for a while.
Trent Grubel was another.
Yep, Trent Grubel, Caitlin Wood, and myself. That was 2013 and 14, Formula Ford. And at the end of 2013, we had Matt Campbell, who's now racing in the Porsche hypercar. And there's one more, I can't remember the name, but yeah. He
all in Synergy Motorsport at the time.
In Synergy, that's it, yeah.
And how'd you find, you didn't do any Kent stuff, no Kent racing, straight into Duratec?
No Formula V, no Kent.
Straight into Duratec. How'd you find, obviously, going from karts to a Duratec Formula Ford, though?
Pretty natural, to be honest, because like it kind of operates more like a kart than the other stuff I drove later. It's just all down to, basically the only thing I had to adjust to was the suspension, because you got another axis of movement under braking and all that. So outside of that, it was pretty much the same technique and the same feel for me. That's how it felt. Yeah. So yeah, I think the adjustment took about sort of 6 months to kind of feel like, okay, I'm comfortable. And then another 6 months to feel like I'm quick. And that was basically 2013, 14 period.
Yeah. And you actually did race in a Kent race.
Oh, I did.
When you came out with that, I was like, I hope you know what you're talking about.
That's true, yeah. That was my last race in Formula 4.
I know, you did bloody well, by the way.
Yeah.
I was in that race.
Right, yeah.
All right, then you definitely know.
Yeah. Oh, that was fun, yeah.
Yeah, it was fun, because you're a Bathurst. And didn't you win the first race?
Won the first race, got the lap record. Second race, I got taken out.
Yeah.
From from the second corner.
But so in the state championships, where did you rank back then? Did you finish second or first or third? Or do you even
state championship? In 2013. So my first season, I was rookie champion, and then second overall. Yeah. In that, and then 2014, I didn't do a full season because I started racing over in Asia at that point as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I did national series. National series. I think they called it. I think like maybe third in the first round in where was that? Can't remember. So long ago. Queensland Raceway or something.
Okay, yeah.
And and then I started to sort of do a few things that year, so less focus on Formula Ford.
So you kind of went from, non-slicks and then 2 slicks and wings, do you know what I mean? So you went from you just basically wanted to use Formula Ford as like a grounding thing to move to the IndyCar ranks, basically.
Yeah, I guess because like I was finishing high school at the time. And it was the best thing I could do locally to prepare myself. Yeah.
Did you ever think of doing like the Americanized version of Formula Ford? I think they've got their own
F1600.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I actually tested it in Australia. Yeah. Kind of. So basically, they have a few small differences, and one of the main ones is the tire. They run slick tires. Yeah. So I did my first Formula Ford drive actually with Borland Racing, who's from Victoria. Yeah. And then they, in preparation for me going to the States, I was actually going there for a test. This is before 2016. They set up one as like an F1600 because I did an F1600 test with Cape Motorsport later on in 2013 or 14. So yeah.
And then where did you live anywhere in America at the time? Like when you went over to America, and or did you go back and forth from Australia?
I just flew into test and flew back. Yeah, right. So I only lived in the States 1 year, which was 2016. Yeah, in Road to Indy.
And you were basically, I think, from memory, with Junkos Racing before they went to IndyCar themselves, which is now they're a big team.
Pretty serious, yeah. You know, that team started off as a go-kart team.
Did it?
Yeah. So
I did not know that.
It's crazy. The boss. Mr. Junkos, basically. Yeah. Ricky is his name. Started a go-kart team, came from Argentina, went to the States for like the American dream, built his go-kart team, progressed it up basically through the road to Indy, but on the team side of things. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and then went to IndyCar.
Yeah, right. What drew you to that team though over like, an Andretti or I think there's Paps Racing or do you know what I mean? Like I think Paps Racing is the owner of the Paps Beer.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So Hunter McElray, who went over there to do his racing, went and raced for Paps Racing. I just obviously do my research, and he raced for he basically was racing for a beer company.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
that's gonna be a good party after.
Yeah. So Junkos was just a go-kart team straight and trying to find their feet basically in the IndyCar ranks.
Yeah. But they'd actually been doing really well, like through their steps up. So they won 2015's Indy Light Championship. And I went at the end of 2015 to go and look at teams and have a few meetings. And they just won the Indy Lights Championship. They looked very capable. And then I tested with two teams. One was Pelfrey, which was the yellow team.
Yeah, the yellow team. Yep.
And then I tested with Junkos, both of them. And it's a bit of a mystery that year because really only Pelfrey cars won any races that year. It was a really big gap it was like, the Red Bull type of domination.
Yeah, okay.
So it was a bit of a head scratcher as to what was the reason for that, like they just had a sweet setup. Hard to know.
Anyone play with the engines? You don't know?
I'm not going to say that, but yeah.
I can. It's my podcast.
But never know. So it was a tough year from that standpoint. They were just so quick, some drivers like Nico Jarman from France and stuff racing with Cape that year. Couldn't really touch them either. So so basically that was kind of my timing to go to Japan after. I was like, okay, good start with things here, but time to go and pivot. What
was the fan base like though at that level in America? Like obviously we'll talk about Japan later, but what was it like? You see here in supercar land, they've got their fans and they're not really like, I wouldn't say they're very over dramatic where like, you go to like another, like, Brooke and I were watching IndyCar this morning again and they're very like really into it and very
hardcore,
right? Passionate. Were they passionate at that Indy light level though when you're in America or not really?
Surprisingly they were, and I think a lot of that was because the series actually tries to promote it. They're like, Road to Indy is the supporting categories for IndyCar, and they had like fan events that they made like autograph sessions for the drivers, so they kind of helped boost that side of things. But the fans were pretty down for it. They would come to the autograph sessions and every team would have like a set of cards, so you'd sign it for them and you'd normally give them all out by the end. So
hero cards,
that's it.
So they have sold out crowds there? Was it like packed
Thanks
crowds?
to IndyCar,
Yeah,
sold
okay,
out.
yeah.
So not every round was with IndyCar, but when it was with IndyCar, it was like next level of atmosphere and fan turnout. Yeah.
You did the Skip Barber Racing School, didn't you?
Yeah, I did like one training event there, basically, and then...
I'm glad I got that right on my notes.
Yeah, man, you did your research. And then I did, basically I just did a quick stint there for training, basically, and I met Colton Herter there.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was also doing it, and then he came over and raced in the Formula BMW Championship for one round as well, and we had great battles in that.
Really?
In the second round.
Yeah, okay.
So it's been a while since I spoke with him, but moving back to the States, kind of reconnect a bit and then fall off again in Japan.
You got to tell me about your Formula BMW stuff, because that was where like they actually Meritus GP did again promote. Was it in China? Was it or Singapore? Was that where they based themselves? Or
they had their own championship, which was the Formula BMW one, and that's in Sepang, so Malaysia. Yeah, and then they're also part of a Formula Masters Championship where they're just a team entering.
Yeah,
and that was China, Korea, Malaysia, big mix of Asia.
I think Aiden, an ex-go-karter as well, was helping running it. Yeah. What's his name?
Oh, he was a driver in it just this season before me.
Yeah, and then he helped Pete run the whole thing, didn't he? Or did he?
I'm not sure if that was the case. I could be wrong, but I was running with them in 2014, and I think he ran 2013, and then moved on to some stuff with Audi after that.
Yeah, right. So how did you find the Formula BMW stuff? Because that was that very competitive, being in literally equal equipment? It
was the best, to be honest. Yeah, because a nice thing about that category is because everything's open, right? You can only change like anti-roll bar, wing, a few small things, open data, open video. So for training, for like a development series, that's like best case scenario, I think, because you can go in there and then there's no reason why you can't improve and beat other people, right? It's just down to how well you can learn and how well you can adapt it into the driving. Because the best, like say in the States, right? I have no idea why Pelfrey was so quick that year. Yep. I could look at the data and say, oh, it's set up, I got to improve it. Or maybe it's driving. Wouldn't know. But for Formula BMW, it's like everything's open. So great learning.
So you basically had an open book between all the drivers?
All drivers, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So you don't...
Is that something that frustrated you, I was going to say, with the US? Is that what sort of made you sort of go, I want to go and try over in Asia and try the different series because they were being closed off with their data and the way that it was?
I think it was just the fact that it was a series-run team.
Yeah.
So the series ran every car in Formula BMW.
Yeah.
And part of their merit, their advertisement point is that, it's open data, you're going to learn a lot here. And then going back to like regular championships, it's just closed off between the teams. So
Yeah, okay.
you get benefit of having more cars in your team as long as they're, enough staff to handle that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's more like that, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, right. And then you've done, so the open wheeler rank 2 Super Formula at the time, or was it was Japanese F3, wasn't it, next? Or
Yeah, yeah.
You've done so much, like to try and like see where you're at on the internet was really hard to
right. And Japan's a bit of a black hole. Like I went over there and just kind of disappeared off the like motorsport.com or Speed Cafe.
Yeah.
Just because it doesn't get reported on much over there.
It is true when you're over there. I think of all the different stuff when I was over there, I'd have to tell people back home what was happening. It's not like, in saying that for people listening who haven't been there, it's different to China, who will, how they've got blocks on their Google and so forth not to get out. It's not to hide anything. It's just that it's in Japanese. So people, if you don't speak it or read it or know it, you can't translate it. So I think there's just not as many people translating between here and there, depending on what's being reported. So yeah.
So you went to Japanese F3 next, or?
Yeah. So basically I ran that season with Tyson, Saad and Tyson. So it was a collaboration team in GT300 with Audi. I was on the Saad side. The other driver, my teammate, was on the Tyson side. That team split at the end of the year. And the Tyson stuff carried on, but I went over with Hideki Noda into Formula 3 because he ran a team. And I was like, oh man, like came here with a pretty like nice option for the start of things, but I don't know what to do now. And he basically said, I have like an F3 team. We can get sponsorship from the series. So
sponsorship actually from the series
from
to
the
help,
series, yeah,
really to help you. So that wouldn't happen here,
yeah, right,
or in America even. I don't think. Oh no, America would. I think. Oh,
well, scholarships and stuff, promotion side of things, and then he was like, we can do like team sponsorship and series sponsorship and give you another year to like find your way, basically. So, it wasn't actually like there's 2 classes in F3 in Japan. There's like the FIA spec. At the time it's the old F3, so it's like the international spec.
Yep.
And then there's like the domestic spec, and I was running in the domestic spec just because budget, basically. It was sponsored, and I just wanted to stay in Japan, so I just carried on with that way. And I thought it was the right move to just keep honing my skills a little bit and then look for the right springboard to go into start chasing down the manufacturers.
Yeah, right.
So did that season, and then after that went to Super Taikyu, the endurance series.
Yep.
And just from networking, I found like a gentleman driver who was from France, came over here. He'd been racing, and got hired the next season from that, and then into Honda, and went pretty well. So it was an important year, even though I didn't realize it at the time.
You were telling us about like you were helping us, Brooke and I, learn outside, obviously, about the way that their characters and their drivers happen to be. Like you said, I think one of them was related to Peter Brock, or you said like transition. I think you got like 5 guys over there that come to World Time Attack.
Yeah.
That like they're just predominant figures. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So can you explain, obviously relating to the Australian audience, what those guys are to the Japanese culture, back to the Australian culture, and why they come to World Time Attack? Yeah.
So actually, the World Time Attack, it's only something I'm recently getting my head around.
So are we, by the way.
Yeah, it's getting big, right?
Yeah, I know.
Series.
I think especially it was building Dan explained them. There was COVID, and I think everything got a bit.
I actually interviewed Ian Baker, or had a chat to him. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, he's a very busy man, and I can see why.
I think it's set to be a big year this year.
Yeah.
Now it's slowly ramping again. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was just in Japan a few months ago, talking to teams, trying to organize a few things in preparation. So
yeah, right.
But yeah, so. For the Japanese drivers, I guess like the big 3, you could say it's DK, so Tsuchiya, Maxarito, and then Taniguchi. And these guys have like a drifting street racing background back in like the 90s, where it's like a subculture basically. And it's like, the Initial D, that anime, it's like that kind of lifestyle. And then they bridged that into like professional drifting, from professional drifting into professional racing with Time Attack and stuff like that. So they were kind of like the figureheads, I guess, for the culture and for that shift from Japan becoming even more professional, I guess more international.
Yeah.
So now they're coming over for Time Attack and stuff like that. But Max Arita is my teammate right now. We had a bit of beef at the start before I joined his team. We had a crash in Super GT.
Yeah, right.
And we smoothed it out and then ended up becoming teammates. So it's all good now. But yeah.
You said, is it Max that's the one that's done a NASCAR race or?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And he's got like an American vibe to him, does he?
Yeah, he does.
Does he like the American culture?
He does, yeah. He's like the cowboy, I guess, of the Japanese guys. Yeah. So he just loves it. He's got a shop called 130R Yokohama.
Yep.
That's like his tuning shop. And he's got cowboy hats in there and things like that. He really embraces the whole American culture, I think, from his NASCAR days.
I've got to ask off topic though. Is there like, even for you, Brooke, is there much American culture within Japan though? Because of like, is there a Western culture?
Yeah.
What do they call those girls? In
Harajuku.
Yeah, and they it's been so long for me, and they tan themselves and everything like California girls.
The gals, right?
Yeah. There's for Dad and that others that listen, that some of them get obsessed with California, and they take it like, as I've talked to before, sometimes in Japan they can take something from 0 to 100 really fast.
Yeah. That was straight to 100. That style. Yeah.
But is it Japan that they have the big Japan, like the KFC culture? They have that. Is KFC big over there? Or is one of the big American
everything's tiny.
franchises?
Like the Macca's is tiny, isn't it? All the sizing. Well, it's actually what it should be, to be honest.
Yeah,
because then America's on the other extreme to us, where it's like, what is this size of burger?
Yeah, like a 2-pounder or something, right?
Yeah, right. And they've got the vending machine culture too. Is it big over there?
It's huge. Yeah, you can buy like food from the vending machine, and you can buy like items from the vending machine.
I haven't found out you can buy cars. There's actually, see, you didn't know
I
it.
did that when he did this to me. I was
Really?
like, you can buy a car?
That's crazy.
Yeah, there's we could pop it up on the screen.
I'd love to see that.
See if I can find
maybe we
it.
can find it.
You keep talking, I'll have a look around.
There is a place in Japan that has, obviously looks like a tower, right?
Yeah.
Like a normal tower. You wouldn't even think about it. And anyway, I found out one day, I was watching like one of those Foxtel shows or something, that there was they were talking about vending machines, and they were going from like the smallest to largest. And the largest one happened to be this car, like literally like sports car.
Inside the machine.
Yeah, like you could literally order a sports car in a vending machine. It would come down on an elevator.
Wow.
And that was your car. And
that's crazy.
And you just literally, obviously pay millions for it. But
yeah.
It might be in, I'm looking here for everybody, but I think it might be in Singapore, the one I'm looking at that's coming up, but it'll give an idea. I think Japan might have it now. I haven't enough time to have a little breeze around. I think it's coming up, but this will give you an idea of what it looks like.
Wow, it looks like...
There we go.
What a lineup. Porsche and... rolls in there too.
Yeah, so I'll have this up on the screen for everyone so they can have a look at what's going on here.
Yeah.
Wow. This is Singapore?
This is
this is Singapore.
Well, you've been there as well, so that's a start.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Wow. That's like, that's the extreme end of like, you shop for like a $1 water, and these shop for like a $1 million car. It's like...
They had some pretty weird things
crazy.
in Japan. I remember I was saying to Dan, I remember even they had like the dirty underwear that they were selling in vending machines.
Yeah, I've heard
like
it.
that, some weird fetishes and that. So, you can find a lot of things.
Never seen it. Yeah.
So for people listening away from YouTube, basically we've just put up a vending machine, what it looks like.
Yeah. So if you're on Spotify, it is on the YouTube link. We'll have it there. But yeah, that's what we've been watching cars being bought from a building that gets shipped down to you like a vending machine style.
So away from that,
that's
Jake,
crazy.
Before I told you guys that, what's the most weirdest vending machine you found over there? Because there are some odd ones.
Yeah, I think so. In Japan, there's kind of like, for like the car community, there's two main like parking areas. One's called Daikoku. And that's a big one in Yokohama, which every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's full of like people with sports cars or supercars just hang out there. There's another one in Tokyo called Tatsumi. It's right next to my shop, actually. And that one had a vending machine where you could buy like dinner in there. So you just go, I want to have like ramen. Put it in there. Then like hot ramen comes out, chopsticks are in. So I thought that was crazy. You can buy like, chicken nuggets in there.
Really?
And I was like, is there a guy inside making it? Where is it like from? So I don't know like how the quality was, like what they're using, because it sits in there for a long time, I guess. But it tasted good.
Yeah, apparently. But a lot of their vending machines are because there's a lot more people than obviously Australia.
Mm.
Like they're constantly restocked. Like I've seen like lobster
And they're just in the
ones.
middle of streets, like
Yeah.
side back streets, like suburbia. You'll walk down your suburban street and there's one just there.
Randomly,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
a quiet street, you think like there's going to be no traffic for it, but it's there.
It's there,
And
yeah.
it's probably pretty used.
There's it's probably not in Japan, but I've done this vending machine research because I'm just a bit of a weird guy. But there's this one vending machine in the world that literally pops out like retro Cokes and all
Wow.
that, but no one else. But everyone's like, where are these drinks coming from? Because they're like they don't exist anymore.
How are they making them?
Yeah, like as you said with the food and stuff, you're like,
Yeah.
who's behind it? Like, is there a person?
I would hate to see you in front of one of these, Dan. He'd be there just pushing it, going, "Oh, I wonder what I get next. Oh, I wonder what I get next." I'd be like, "Please stop putting the money in."
Yeah. So so we'll obviously go back to Japan and stuff like that. You did before your Super GT, you did Super Formula. We're back to your open wheel thing. You went
F3, yeah. And then so then I joined. That was 2018, and I was kind of just trying to angle myself like how I can position my path to go into a manufacturer, and because that's kind of like the best way to have a chance in Super GT, Super Formula, being with the manufacturer there. So then I ended up meeting a guy who, just from networking, I was just spending all my time networking for sponsors, for teams, team introductions, that kind of thing. And I met a guy called Philippe, who's now become like a good friend of mine. And he was running a team in Super Taikyu with a garage that's like the Volkswagen Motorsport team.
Yeah.
So we ran TCR in like more of the early days. And that was for, the full season and my first 24-hour and stuff at that time. And great season basically there as like the pro. So Super Taikyu's format is like an amateur, like gentleman, basically a bronze is mandatory. And then one pro, and then the rest of the lineup is up to you. So I got brought in as the pro, and then it gave me another year extension basically to keep finding my way to the manufacturer.
Yeah, right. How does that all work over here? Because obviously I've had Cameron Crick here on the studio, like talking about how to, get sponsors in Australia. But how do you have to, market yourself over there and get people involved? Because obviously you've got the Australian background, not the Japanese. So how do you entice them to back you instead of, someone local? You know what I mean?
Well, actually, I just found like my niche there. So like working out like what's going to be a fit for me. And basically it's like the expat group.
Yeah.
So I got myself just around because Philippe as well is like an expat. And then there's like a pretty, substantial community of like foreigners living in there in Tokyo for various reasons, businesses or usually business really. And I joined forces with some of those like little companies in there, like Tokyo Supercars, for example, became an ambassador for them, got to meet a lot of people. And just doing that sort of route basically was like a big start in expanding the network for one, and then finding people that are kind of the right fit for this kind of idea because they like cars and, they're also foreigners here. It's quite relatable. So that was my start basically. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And was it Audi then Honda basically, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like Audi, F3, Volkswagen, then Honda in 2020.
What's the best one that you found working with though? Like
Honda.
By
it was very cool.
Yeah.
I think just because like I was also helping develop the car, and we're also developing Yokohama's tire. So it was like, because Super GT, it's kind of like a tire war as well as a manufacturer war. There's like Yokohama, Bridgestone, Dunlop, Michelin.
A bit like Supercars in the 90s.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think even go-karting had that, back in the 90s too.
Yeah.
I think, I remember Troy was saying he was developing like the tire for Vega or something like that.
Yeah, Vega and Bridgestone.
Yeah, right.
So that'd be interesting because now in the motorsport landscape, it's pretty much carbon copy or cut and copy paste. And it's everything basically the same.
Same.
Ferrari, F1, then there's, they've all got the same tire manufacturer.
Exactly, yeah. So this was like, I didn't know it was like this variable when I first came in with the Audi team, because like all the brands obviously have their own BOP, right? Like the performance of the vehicle is adjusted per series. But then you have another element of, the variables, which is the tires. And some cars work really well. Like Yokohama, it's developed on GTRs. So they always work well on GTRs, but they don't really work that well on the Audi.
Yeah.
And I think Audi, it's one of the best running costs. Like Audi and Mercedes, running cost is really good, so it's popular for teams. Yokohama, it's also a good cost, for the season. So for the high budget teams, they'll just put the best stuff on when they can. But for this kind of team, like they were quite budget conscious. So they had to find the balance basically for that. Yeah. But then developing the tire with with Yokohama was really awesome too. Because like you'd pick your sidewall, you'd pick your compound, you'd pick your construction type. You'd just say like they'd give you like X amount of sets for preseason testing. And then Mugen was running all of the like ECU and electronic side. So they'd say, we need you to test like this, and give us your feedback on like some ECU maps. And then Yokohama would say like this on the compounds, pick your best stuff, put it together. Yeah. That was so cool.
Did you get days at the track to yourself at all during these testing sessions, or did you get a lot of track time is what I'm saying?
Not really. It's very like controlled. So for budget reasons, the series restricts your track time. So you have official testing only for the series, or like tire testing for the manufacturer. Yeah. So I was just running in those two, basically.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about coming back here though and running any? Yeah, I know you did the Bathurst race, or Bathurst Formula Ford, and the 12-hour. But did you ever cross your mind going, maybe I could try racing in Australia at all, or were you just not interested at all?
Well, like I said, I was really interested in IndyCar and then Super GT, Super Formula. Not so much like V8 Supercars, which is what it was at the time. Yeah. And nowadays, like COVID's finished, things are opening back up. I'm kind of opening my radar again to what's around. So chatting with GT World Challenge teams, considering maybe looking at supercar stuff, but yeah, it's like a new thought basically.
How do you find with the engineering, because Japan's always really on top of their technology. It's a big thing for them, and what comes out of university is different. What I found, because I did engineering at their universities over there, and the level, like you've got first year students around a university with robots, like it's insane, right? And we do it like there's a lot of intelligent people here. It's like, it's just the resources there are different, I think, which is what we don't necessarily have here. How do you find it in the pit, say, with your team, and what's set up technological wise compared to say you're at a 24-hour event in Japan versus if you came here and did the 12-hour at Bathurst? How do you compare the two? Do you think the technology's different that Japan's got because we're not necessarily seeing it, or do you think it's on par with how they do things?
I've only experienced like the Australian side when it comes to the 12-hour really. Yep. And obviously that's always like very much a private team thing. But Japan's thing is they have like the whole R&D aspect as well, because if it's the manufacturer of the car or the tire, they've got a whole heap of sensors, a whole heap of like plans for like, trying different things. Yep. Or if it's like a parts maker like Modulo or Endless or something, they want to develop their parts too. So there's a whole, I think a whole lot more focus on like improvement. Whereas I think in Australia and probably more like global racing, you just have like what's FIA homologated. So you don't even think about that stuff. You just focus on your data, your setup, and your regular sensors. So that's the main point of difference, I think, because of the open development aspect.
Yeah, okay. Are they sort of in line more, I know it's a little bit different, of course, but to F1 where they're trying to always look for technological improvements and what they can do year on year and changing, because we see F1 come through into the commercial market. Is that similar to what Japan's sort of trying to do as well?
A little bit, yeah. We developed some stuff during my Honda time that they said I can't tell anyone else about because like they want to use it for the future and that kind of thing. So it's not to the extent like F1, you can probably just do it like, everything, right? Wing, engine improvement. Of course, within the regulation, it's like a smaller version of that, basically. So they'll pick some key components, and then they'll try and develop that as well, because it's a lot less restricted. It's not FIA GT3, it's GT300. So there's actually like a carbon fiber tub chassis as well that's homologated, and it's just a bit open, basically. That car you can actually develop the aero on as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like that.
This is a little bit out of that, but still in the technological realm, because there's so much talk on EVs. Do you see, because we've seen Toyota talk, I was going to say they're talking about the hydrogen car. Are you seeing in Japan, because we're not necessarily seeing all the news there, because they're obviously developing these technologies at racetracks and so forth, and then in-house elsewhere. Are you seeing, is there a shift in Japan? Are they on the EV trail, or are they looking more at hydrogen and other options that maybe that we're not, US, Australia and others haven't looked at yet?
They're pretty heavily invested in hydrogen.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so Toyota and Honda are pretty much the two that are pushing that the hardest, particularly Toyota.
Yeah, okay.
You might have seen, so the boss or ex, chairman of Toyota is Akio Toyota. he actually races in Super Taikyu as well as the AM driver for that car.
Yeah, okay.
And his car is like a hydrogen powered Corolla.
Oh wow.
Really?
Yeah, so they're developing that in
Yeah.
Super Taikyu. And yeah, I think the only one that's focusing on EV is really Nissan.
Yeah.
They've got a bit more of an international mindset, and I think because they're kind of owned and partially like controlled from overseas, like, you know, chairman and things like that,
Yep.
it's a bit more connected.
Mm.
But yeah, I think it's tricky because in Japan, you probably remember, right? Like the parking, it's really limited
Yes.
for,
yes.
for the everyday person.
And there's those car parks where they, you know, you drop it off and they stack them.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
mine's like that.
Like the thing we watched.
Like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. It's actually quite terrifying. I remember actually we thought it was funny at like 3 a.m. to ask the attendants to let us stand on. There's like a big circle where you drive your car up on, but it goes around in circles before they take it up. We'd be asked so we could stand on it and be twirled around.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so common, that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like the parking at my house is like that too. It's a machine one,
Yep.
but you can't charge an EV in those because you got to plug into a wire, but the car's going to be moving around. So
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of that's all they got, you know.
So
like,
what's your take on the future? Is it EV or is it hydrogen? Or do you reckon we've still got... Because F1's still at that point where they're trying to go to like a healthier fuel.
yeah.
And it's, I don't know, we're in this weird patch of the world where it's, you know, everyone's got their own quarter, basically.
Yeah, I think the majority is pretty heavily leaning on EV, probably mainly because like Tesla's been really successful, and then they've got like integration further for your house and stuff like that. They kind of link it all up. Like Tesla's basically a phone, right? Go home, charge it from your roof or store it in your battery.
Yeah.
It's a pretty like holistic setup. I think that's pretty good. Yeah, I think EV in Japan, it's pretty hard though. So they might be the ones to push the hydrogen.
It will be interesting because I still think there's a lot of questions around EV. Like I read a lot, I was talking to Dan about, like in the States, they were saying the production of these batteries is absolutely decimating farmland because of all the water that gets seeped out to do it. And it's going to be interesting to see, is this the answer? And then how they dispose of the batteries. And
It takes 4 hours to put out a Tesla, apparently.
I saw some crazy stories online about the fire he's trying to put across the world, different Teslas out and that. So, but I think we're trying to work to something better, but then it's trying to find the hiccups. And I thought it was really interesting watching the hydrogen. Like, how does that have less hiccups than what we're seeing with the EVs and that?
Yeah, well, people get worried because hydrogen can be like a bomb, right?
Yes,
you don't want to
very
crash
true.
a car like
Yes.
that. But apparently it's not in a state where it's going to be at risk of crashing and turning into a bomb.
Yeah.
So that's a hiccup that maybe it can avoid. Yeah.
Do they have any on the road yet in Japan, or is this just
Heaps.
they actually are heaps
Heaps.
on the road, and are they having any incidents with them?
Not that I know of.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
the only downside with hydrogen at the moment is just expensive to fill up.
Okay, yeah.
But that's like, you know, eventually if there's enough demand, there'll be enough supply and it can fix it probably.
That'll change, yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of the hybrids over there are actually hydrogen hybrids rather than EV hybrids.
Okay, yeah.
And you've done actually, go back to your racing a bit here.
Yeah.
You've actually done a bit of GT4 racing as well, haven't you?
Now and then, yeah.
Now and then.
Yeah.
You've done so much stuff. Actually, now they're trying to get GT4 going next year on their own here in Australia. And you've obviously gone out to the Supercars and seen, you know, the GT World Challenge. There was one GT4 there, I think, on that weekend. But how do you think it is over in Japan when you drove it? Was it a big field? Was it healthy, or was it kind of just...
GT4, it's the biggest field in Super Taikyu, actually.
Really?
Japan love GT4.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's actually a good thing for Australia here. Do you know what I mean? Like GT4 is because everyone likes to talk, even on the internet, you're just like, oh, why doesn't Supercars go to GT4? Because it's kind of that mixture between a production car and a GT car. Do you know what I mean?
That's true. It's always the core of the road car.
Yeah.
But so is GT3. Yeah. GT4, it's probably a little bit slow, I think, for Supercars to transition to. On that front. But GT4, it's got its kind of niche because the running cost, funnily enough, it's not that different to a GT3.
Yeah.
It's a little bit cheaper running cost, and then like the maintenance and stuff, it's a bit cheaper, but not crazy. So a lot of teams in China, they want to run GT3 because they're like, just the purchase price is really different.
Yeah.
Maybe you purchase like a GT3 car for like, I don't know what they cost now, 800 grand is roughly what they were.
Yeah.
And then the purchase price for a GT4 is like 200 grand. So that's like crazy difference for the teams.
Yeah.
So in Japan, when the teams are funding it, they're very like money focused on that type of thing. But in China, GT3 is the only thing that they do really. GT4 doesn't make sense to them.
Yeah, right. But But when you did GT4 though, do you reckon it? As I said back before, do you reckon it will take off in Australia though? With the like, is there a way that they like made it happen in Japan or anything like?
Well, I think
because there's a lot of people still with the GT3 stuff, but then it's kind of like this mixture thing. Like, oh, do I want to buy GT4? Do you know what I mean? Some people buy those things just for club sprints, for example.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But over in Japan, they clearly race them more.
Race them a lot. Yeah. It's pretty serious.
And you raced it at Bath. You raced the Expo at Bathurst a few years ago. That was a GT4, wasn't it?
That was a GT4. Yeah.
How was that like to actually race in a GT4 at Bathurst against the GT3 cars? And was
pretty crazy. Yeah, because you're in your mirrors. There's like a 10-second lap gap, from GT4 to GT3. Yeah. And across the mountain, you can't really just get around people, especially if they have like a bronze in the car. You might be faster in your GT4. And I remember there were times there'd be like two GT3s battling, and then they've left the door open for me, and I'm like, I'm just going to go in because like the next GT4 is not far behind me. Yeah. So then you somehow still mix in with the GT3s across the mountain, but then on the straight, it's crazy, the speed difference. Like you come out of the exit, check the mirror, no one's there. And then down the straight, you go to turn in, and you're like, I'll just check one more time. And then, there's two of them right there now. So that was a pretty big thing to manage.
Yeah. When was that? What was that year at Bathurst that you did?
I did, I actually did the Ginetta in 2017.
Yep. So that was a GT4 as well.
GT4, yeah. Yep. And then I did the KTM in 2019.
Yeah, right. Did you have any factory support or the KTM Crossbow? Was that KTM? Was that a KTM factory deal or?
No, that was just a friend of mine was running the car in, his name's Zen Low. Yep. Yeah, and I'd met him. I got a nice chance to do a race for Super Trofeo Lamborghini in Japan back in 2015. Off the back of the Formula Masters Championship, their prize was basically one race in Super Trofeo. Yeah, right. And then I met this guy Zen there. He raced, and then he was like, "Hey, I'm running a car in Bathurst. Do you want to join me on that?" Yeah. And then that's how it went, basically. So it's very private.
Yeah, right. Cool. Brooke, you got anything? Well,
I just wanted to know about we've got like, you're probably seeing, I don't know if you're across the fan base, what we've got in Supercars, and there's a little bit of a heated debate about the whole series and in terms of entertainment and cost of tickets and getting people to the track, and they're kind of like, they're saying we're losing a bit of a fan base, and we've even got people in the news now looking at, is the Shahins that are looking
the Shahins are looking at
buying there's a whole big thing. In Japan, like, what is the fan base? My question is, what is it like? Is it packed out crowds? Is it very engaged? Do people like really follow the drivers? Do you have hardcore fans? And is it like America? How do you sort of see the fan base in that over there?
It's the most hardcore I've ever seen, but even more than America. Yeah, and I think that's a little bit of how it is in Japan. As you say, everything's like 10 out of 10 or 0 out of 10. So I remember I went for Super GT there, my first race. I hadn't even driven yet. And then people brought like photos of me to sign and stuff. And I was like, whoa, like, what's going on?
You haven't even raced yet?
Never raced, yeah. It was just turned up for practice, actually, like pre-season practice. Yeah. Yeah. And then
so is this just from the net they'd seen? Like,
yeah, they just printed out my like Instagram photos or something.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
But they do love foreigners. I know when I was over there watching and that, they get really excited by other people coming over, which is good because you're like, received well in that.
Yeah, I think they love it when you love Japan.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, but yeah, to answer your question, I think like the fan base there, it's really hardcore.
Yep.
And maybe that's because a lot of the things that are running, like say like the team or whatever, it's like all manufacturer stuff.
Yeah.
So people are like, oh, I like Honda, so I have like 5 teams I can support here. I'll wear Honda stuff, and then you find your favorite driver, and the grid walks are really interactive as well. You go up in like a queue, and then you can shake hands and get photos with the drivers.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Very accommodating. Or you maybe like a car guy, you like tuning parts, and then you want to go and put, I don't know, like Wed Sport wheels on it or something and on your car, and then, they have a team, so that's my team now. It's like very connectable.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like I haven't followed Supercars too much, but I think it's like more like private teams running, less like your own sort of interests can integrate to the series. You more just pick a team that you like, right?
Yeah, okay. And do they have a lot of merchandise then for all the fans and that, including driver merchandise, team merchandise that really just helps to...
Yeah.
Do they have merchandise trucks like America, or do they have like their own
right.
tailgating, as they call it, like out of the back of cars and Do they tailgate or do they take?
No, it's more like orderly. Yeah, so they'll have like
okay.
the fan section, basically a lot of like events going on. They have the race queens as well, which is like grid girls.
Yep.
There's I swear, like doing photos there on like the pre-race grid. I'm like posing there with my helmet and my teammate, and like half the photographers aren't focusing on us; they're focusing on
the grid girls.
The grid girls. So there's people that come like for that as well. So
there's
like a lot of elements that attract people to the racing there, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Because Japan will be one of the only countries in the world still going around with grid girls.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
that
right.
got pretty abolished, but it's too fundamental in the like fan base now for them to move it out of Japan. And it's actually in the regulation. You have to enter with at least 2 grid girls in your team to make your entry.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So the girls paid well, looked after by the teams?
Very well, yeah. It's like a very respected, they're basically celebrities over
Yeah,
there.
okay,
Yeah, like their following, it's way out, exceeds the drivers' following on Instagram and stuff. And they can get gigs outside of that from modeling and stuff as well. So it's a legitimate career option over there.
Yeah. And are they looked after also in terms of, I know Japan does have its, underbelly of that side of things, but are the girls looked after in terms of security? Because I know that I can imagine, I've seen it over there. They have crazy fans coming after them and that. So do they have to have security for the girls, or are people a little bit more respectful at the track? And
yeah, pretty respectful. Like they do have them, like, as with the drivers, as with the team, you can't just go into the paddock and do whatever you want and say, hi to anyone. Yeah. They've got sort of like, a bit of like protection for everyone.
Yeah, okay.
On that front. So I haven't seen any issues at all, actually. And everyone seems to love the job, and it's like a nice atmosphere there that they bring. So I don't see it going anywhere from that side of things.
Yeah, okay, yep.
Cool. Well, Jake, you basically nearly reached the end of the podcast, which you've done really well, because I know I've seen you getting a bit squidgy like myself in the couch.
Yeah, it's pretty comfortable, actually. So.
Yeah, well, that's good. I'm glad. But I used to have this game show earlier in the season and last season called the Fast Five.
Oh, damn.
But it's not the Fast Five.
No, we got rid of the Fast Five, but I said to Dan, I want to do a little bit of game show because it's Japan, right? And Japan loves a good game show, but no, we're not going to like throw you off the balcony or anything extreme like a Japanese game show, or something won't dive out of the wall or something.
I just want to add this part. So this is her part into the show. It's basically, obviously, you've got the game show part.
Yeah.
How many questions we got, Brooke?
It's 10 and 10. So do you know Japan or Australia better? We're going to have some fun with.
Oh,
so we've got 5 questions
tough.
on each, which are just straight out answers you give. And then there's 5 questions on each, true or false.
Okay.
So we're going to start with Japan. How well do you know Japan?
Yeah, Brooke, you can take the Japanese questions. I'll take the Aussie one.
Yep. All right. Okay. So the first one: if you're taking the fastest train, which is the Shinkansen for everyone, the bullet train, from Tokyo to Osaka, how long will it take?
About an hour and a half, hour 40.
It said 2.5 hours.
2.5.
Yeah. I couldn't remember. I was sitting there going, I know it's the furthest point. I remember to Nagoya, it was like, from Tokyo to Nagoya was like an hour or something. But then I was like, I know Osaka was a bit further.
You two have been there. I have not. So
maybe it's Nagoya I'm thinking of, actually, yeah.
It's a great train, though, for anyone who hasn't been on it. It's just like...
It's like an aeroplane, yeah. It's so comfortable.
Best thing, it just flies straight through. And the leg space.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, they made massive leg space here.
Yeah. You know, the like flight cost and the train cost, Shinkansen cost, it's quite similar to go from like Tokyo to Kyoto or something like that.
Yeah.
Time is pretty similar. And then, you
can take as much stuff as you want on. Don't have to worry about getting in and off. Like, I never took a plane. Only took a plane when we had to go to Okinawa. That was the only time I ever took one. That's the furthest island for anyone. And it's like their version, I guess, of Hawaii, Maui down there.
So does he get a green tick or a red light for that one?
That one's wrong.
That's wrong.
Sorry.
Sorry. All right.
Which band was Nami Amuro part of in 1992?
I have no idea.
I knew it from when I was there as the singer herself, and I didn't know this, but it was the Super Monkeys.
Okay.
Okay, what is Pokemon an abbreviation for in Japan?
Oh, Pocket Monsters.
There we go. Got one.
Got one on the board.
And how many times has Tokyo hosted the Summer Olympics?
I think they did one in like the 60s or 70s, like quite far back. Yeah, and then I'm going to say twice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, got that one. Yep. And what musical genre is Koda Kumi known for?
I'm just going to guess. I don't know who that is. Is it metal?
Nah, R&B.
Okay.
It's gonna be. I knew you were gonna go for one or the other because in Japan they're both popular.
Yeah, it's crazy, the metal scene.
All right, true or false? Japan is the oldest monarchy in the world.
True.
Yep, true. Japan records more earthquakes per year than any other country in the world.
Probably true.
Yep, true.
You're coming back on the true.
Did you
or false.
feel? I've got to ask. Did you feel some big ones while you've been over there?
Yeah, I almost fell off the couch from one.
Yeah.
Before. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was on the edge of the couch, so I gave it a good chance.
I remember being woken up. The worst one I had was, when it felt like someone had grabbed both of my shoulders and was throwing me violently in bed. And like you're asleep and then you wake up and you're really confused because you think you're being attacked.
Yeah,
and
like
it's
a ghost or something's on you, yeah.
That was the most scariest one. But everything else was tremors. And then you come back here and you probably walk around here expecting a tremor and there's nothing there. Your body's just like, what is this?
Eventually you get so used to it, you just wake up in your bed and you're just shaking around. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
It'll be gone in a sec.
Okay, Tokyo Auto Salon started in 1989.
True or false, huh?
Yep.
I don't know. I'm going to go for false.
Yep. It was 1983. 1983 it started. They've been going for a long time, that one.
How many green lights has he got on true or false?
3.
3?
Yep.
And how many questions has he done from that?
3, 5. So we've got 5 out of 8 so far.
5 out. Wow,
Yeah, doing well.
Doing well, Jakey.
Nice.
Okay, here's a car one. Honda overtook Volkswagen to become the best-selling car brand in the world in 2020.
That's got to be false.
True, it was Toyota.
Yeah.
I thought, we'll have those brands in there and see what happens.
Yeah.
All right, so this is an anime question. In Attack on Titan, the first wall attacked was Wall Maria.
True or false, right?
Yep.
Oh, man, it's been a long time since I saw it. I'll say false.
That was true.
Oh, damn it.
Alrighty, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 10 for Japan.
6 out of 10 for Japan. Now it's the Australian side, Jake. Before you can go home,
going to test the loyalty, right?
Yeah. You're literally going to Japan tomorrow. So.
Yeah.
So we'll start with the Australian stuff. All right. Which famous surfing
Kelly Slater.
No, I didn't get to finish it. Which surfing world champion famously punched a shark to save himself from being eaten?
Oh, I remember it was in the news, right? Like 10 years ago or something.
It was a meme too at the time.
Yeah.
A meme.
Do I get any hints, like first letter or anything like that?
M.
Mark?
No.
Mick Fanning.
It was
Mick Fanning. Ah, yeah.
It's one of those common names of like when you hear it, you'll be like, damn it.
That's the one, yeah.
Number 2, should be easy. Who won the 2022 New South Wales Formula Ford Kent Series?
Oh, what was his name again? Dan Holohan.
That's it. There we go. So you're back on one board.
There it is.
Yep. By the way, Brooke wrote all the questions.
I wrote this. I think it's funny because some people like look and go, I don't know, and he always gets the shit. So I did that just to annoy him.
Yeah, imagine if I said I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
I would have killed the vibe a bit. You know?
I would have thought it was funny.
Yeah. I've actually had that from a journo before, and he was actually asking me about Formula Ford. I was like,
really?
Yeah, I was like, I actually won last
It was actually
year.
on the mic, wasn't it, when you were commentating with him at Eastern Creek? That was great.
That was embarrassing, but anyway. What is the most dangerous bird in Australia, maybe, and the world?
It'd either be magpie or the plover, I guess.
No, it's Dan's favourite. It's the dinosaur bird.
The cassowary, isn't it?
Yeah, the cassowary.
Oh, yeah, right.
All right, next one.
What is the main ingredient in Vegemite?
The main ingredient? Damn, feels like it's only salt.
Brooke hates it, by the way.
Yeah.
I actually hate it.
I don't really like it either, but sometimes I get a craving for it. But.
Yeah, same here.
You know, well, the main ingredient is yeast. And I was going to say, you know what it reminds me of in Japan, which I could not stand? You either love or hate it.
You say natto?
Yes, there we are.
Did you like natto?
I hated it.
Yeah, same.
I couldn't get around it.
Yeah.
And question number 5 for part 1. What is Danny Ricciardo's nickname?
Oh, the honey badger.
There we go.
How many green lights did
2
you get?
out of 5 we've got so
2
far.
out of 5. You can come back on the true or false.
I need at least 4 to tie it out,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Is the drop bear real?
Oh, depends who you ask, but probably no.
I love convincing foreigners.
Was the first life-saving club founded in Manly Beach?
Yeah. I'll say yeah.
I was Bondi. I tried to trick you because you're from Northern Beaches.
Yeah, nah. Didn't know it.
All right, the next one. I can't believe you wrote this one.
Hope you're listening, Paul Morris. This one's for you.
Does Paul Morris follow me on Instagram or socials?
Follow you?
Does Paul Morris, the dude Paul Morris.
Yeah. Oh,
You know, because I'm so big on social media and all.
yeah, I mean, he'd have to, right? I think he does.
No, he doesn't
he
actually.
doesn't.
Oh.
And this is a very contentious issue for Dan because he's a massive Paul
I'm a
Morris
massive fan.
fan. So Paul, if you're listening, Dan is a massive
I've been
fan and he's very sad.
We've been in motorsport for years, and I thought he would follow me. But anyway,
He's sad.
He chose to follow Brooke.
He's
Anyway.
sad. You made
That's
him
the strategy,
sad,
though.
man.
You gotta follow him, like some stuff, and then comment on a.
I've got to be.
That's the format.
That's what Brooke said. She goes, "You can just be more active, so make sure he sees you." You know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the next one, Babe, is it the highest grossing Australian film?
Probably not.
Yep, that's true.
It's true.
It's true.
It's true.
As in, I'm wrong.
Oh, sorry, no. Babe is the highest grossing film. True
It
or
is.
false? Yes,
Okay.
false. You're right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Crocodile Dundee was.
Really?
I love these true or false because then I go, shit, no, you're right, wrong.
And before the last question, how many has he got for Japan and how many has he got for Australia?
We've got so far 4 for Australia. It's lucky you're flying back.
Yep. All right.
Japan's like, we welcome you.
How many has Jake got for Japan?
4 so far. This
Japan was 6, right?
What was the scoreboard?
6, yes, 6 for Japan.
So it's 6-4 at the moment.
Yep.
So I can't win in.
Oh, you can't win for
Australia, so-
Australia.
And you can pass Australia.
You can pass.
Yep.
Okay, the last one is Shane Van Gisbergen off to NASCAR in 2024?
I think he is, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's true.
He's saying farewell too.
Yeah.
You're all leaving us.
Right.
Hopefully on these YouTube graphics, we'll put in Jack's head the scoreboard with Japan and Australia.
Yeah.
What was the end score there?
It was 6
6-5.
to 5. Yeah, that's pretty
6-5.
close.
5. Okay. Close. Yeah.
Well, it shows that you love the country that you live in, so that's a positive
Yeah. I'll
thing.
show my team that
Yeah.
they'll sign me next year, hopefully.
Yeah. Now, I've made this mistake, Jake, before. Before we go, I normally like, that was a great podcast. But is there anything else like you'd want to chat about, or did I miss anything out on your racing career, or anything that was?
I think that's the main stuff. But have you done any kart racing recently? What's the latest with the whole scene?
Oh, with me?
Yeah.
You want to know? I basically just have a go-kart just with my coach, Bart. But nah,
Yep.
the basically the
Is
whole
it Bart Price or
Bart Moore.
more? Okay.
Bart Moore. So Bart raced F3 back in the day and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that, and he's a GT coach himself. But yeah, we just race karts together. I have not gone back into the go-karting scene at all.
Yeah.
I do know from Tommy Williamson, who came on the show, that it's changed a lot.
Yeah.
And
Good
it's-
way, bad way?
I'd say it's a bit of both. So it's the thing is, from where we're coming from what we started with at the podcast, and you're talking about with your dad and Wollongong Kart Club. There's none of that these days, really. I think there is, but it's not AKA regulated.
Oh, okay.
That's what I should say.
Isn't like the levels just gone up where it's not really
Yeah,
as
so you
accessible.
got to go to basically there's like multiple different councils or karting associations now, opposed to back when we were racing. There was only literally just the AKA. That was
Yeah,
really the whole
right.
thing. So there's basically club racing, but it's under non-sanctioned rules essentially.
Mm-hmm.
You can just turn up to a track and race, but there's not the system that really goes on, and also there's other things where I've heard, which Tommy said, where you're paying $200,000 to be in a top team. Do you know what I mean?
Whoa.
Which is
Really?
basically with him, yeah. So
In Europe, or that's happening even
no,
in
in here
Australia?
because they're bringing that kind of European,
Level and quality and all that out here now, are they?
yeah. So that's changed,
Wow.
yeah. And Stars of
That's crazy.
Karting was kind of big for us, but now they're basically going all out. And I think Tyler Greenbury, he's got his own team. A lot of drivers are starting
Nice.
their own team too now,
Yeah.
which is good to see. This is only what I'm literally seeing from Instagram.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm just basically what I've seen of Instagram. Would I like to go back to it?
Mm.
Brooke already knows. No, I'm too old and I can barely survive the night race. So that's my catch up on it. Would I like to do a one-off kart race? Yeah. But what about yourself? I actually did see, this is the one question that I did forget. Were you coaching? You've got a go-karter with your logo, and how did that logo in your, because you're big into art, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess a little bit. Like I designed my helmets and my merch and stuff like that just for like fun, really. But yeah, I was training a karter who's now racing in the Spanish championship. And then he, funnily enough, when I was coaching him, I had a helmet which was basically like a star cross design.
Yeah, I love that helmet actually. It was really cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to try and like bring the visor into the overall design rather than having it sort of bolted onto the front.
Yeah.
And then he just wanted to use that as the base for his design. So now he's running that in the championship, which is kind of cool to see. Bit trippy because it looks like that's me driving. Yeah, so he's kind of on his way now racing for planning to race sort of like, bigger Rotax World Final. I think he's vying for a spot because Spain has got only one ticket. I think he's running maybe first or second, so hopefully he can get the ticket. Yeah.
Cool. Is there any other interesting stuff that you've liked in Japan and America and Australia? Like, is there anything? Actually, we'll go with a pretty simple question. What's your most favorite track that you've ever driven on?
Oh, that's such a hard question. I'd say my top 3, I'll pick one out of it. It's going to either be Laguna Seca or it's going to be Bathurst or...
You're going to have to go with one at the end of this, Jake.
Yeah. Or maybe... I'm going to say Laguna Seca.
You're going to go Laguna
Yeah, it just feels good. Like the corkscrew section.
Yep.
In the Pro Mazda, because it drops away so quickly, you're basically like floating as you come off it, and you're bouncing off the rev limiter all the way down until you land at the bottom.
Yeah, right.
And it just feels like a roller coaster. It's so cool.
Yeah,
so where's that located?
In California, isn't it?
Yeah, California.
Yeah,
okay.
you're listening, not
Orange
sure.
County.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
Yeah. And then the other question was relating to that. So you'd gone with Laguna Seca.
Mm-hmm.
On Laguna Seca, what car would you drive out of everything that you've driven?
Out of everything I have driven so far, probably LMP2.
An LMP2.
Yeah, I think that track, I just drove it a few times on like Gran Turismo and stuff. And I feel like the more downforce you put on, the more fun that circuit gets because it's quite high speed and flowing. So I think an LMP2 car would be pretty crazy around there.
Were you a big fan of that? Because Gran Turismo, the movie's just come out. Were you a big fan of the game back in the day?
I didn't actually have PlayStation. I was always on the Xbox side of things. Yeah. But actually, it's like side note, I'm running the Twitch stream for Super Taikyu right now.
Yep.
So it's got an English stream from this year. And I had on for one of the commentary team, Jan Mardenborough, who's actually the bass for the
actual movie itself.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, he's gotten too busy now, obviously, with this stuff. So different lineup, but super cool guy.
Is he still racing? I actually don't know.
A little bit. He did the Fuji 24 hour.
This year?
This year.
Yeah, okay, yep.
Ran in a Nissan. He's still got a Nismo connection going on, but nothing maybe full season right now.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome. So I was going to ask before we wrap up, what are your plans for the future? Like in terms of, are you going to stay long-term in Japan or do you have like a big dream to go back to try in US again or?
I'm looking into, I guess making 2 avenues progress. One is the racing side. So I want to carry on racing in Japan. I'm also looking to add in like a GT World Challenge Australia aspect. So kind of a bit more of an international calendar. And I just started a shop in Australia as well. So we're going to launch at Time Attack. We have our own booth.
Oh, so you are? That was going to be my next question. Are you going to be there?
Yeah, so actually I'm racing that weekend.
Oh, wow,
but I have business partners who are going to be there for the stand.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
because Brooke hasn't been there, and I've said to her, it is basically like Auto Salon.
Yeah.
That's why I said to him, we're going to go this year. So for anyone listening now, because actually, I think when your podcast will be on the 5th of September and Auto Salon is the 2nd. So we'll be just returned when your podcast launches.
Okay.
Promote it with it all.
Yeah. So check it out. Then we actually have a car on the Yokohama booth.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we bought Max Cerrito's R31 GTSR.
Yeah.
900 horsepower. I just sent it from Japan like over Christmas.
Yeah.
We're just tuning it and stuff for Australian fuel right now, but it's going to be on Yokohama's booth.
Yeah.
And then we have a booth which is called Ginza Garage.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the new shop basically. and we're an ASM, which is a tuning brand for Honda distributor.
Yep.
And Mugen as well. So some Honda stuff, basically.
Have you spoken to Ian Baker at all? Like, have you actually gotten to know him, or you just going through his marketing department?
I was going to meet him when he came to Japan, but
Yeah.
schedule didn't line up. But my business partner, Benny, is pretty good with him, pretty tight with him. So it's been through that way, basically.
Do you plan on running a time attack car in the future?
Yeah.
Is that something you're looking at?
I'm talking with a shop at the moment.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just not expose them unless they if they back out or something, right?
Of course, yeah.
So talking with a shop at the moment, pretty reputable brand in Japan. They're interested to come out.
Yeah.
They have a driver they're using for all the like attack scuba stuff right now. They've used him for a long time, but for time attack, it's an Australian circuit, so they're like, off we go. Then you can drive.
Does Japan have their own version of World Time Attack or like their own championship or anything? I know they're big into the drifting championship.
They've got like attack scuba, or scuba is like their version basically. So you might have driven it on Gran Turismo.
Yeah.
That's the time attack track basically.
Right.
Scuba 2000.
Yeah, cool.
Imagine that's gonna have a big crowd.
Yeah. But it's weird. They wrap it up in like a day. It's just like a 1 day thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty popular internationally now though.
Yeah, okay,
Cool.
yeah. We'll definitely be promoting that. Letting everyone know the week before your episode comes out when we do the highlights. Everyone will be like, go see Jake.
Yeah.
He's next week on the podcast. So, it's good timing.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheers, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
And I
Great
love
to see
your
you
logo,
again.
by the way. And your website.
Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Appreciate it.
Bye.